courage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. Thank you for spending your morning with us. There was a post put out yesterday by the Examiner, the Washington Examiner, in which a renowned author and humanitarian, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Jim Garrow, has made a pretty astounding claim on his Facebook page. I'm going to read it for you. I have just been informed by a former senior military leader that Obama is using a new, quote-unquote, litmus test in determining who will stay and who must go in his military leaders. Get ready to explode, folks. The new litmus test of leadership in the military is if they will fire on U.S. citizens or not. Those who will not are being removed. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a shocking announcement. Garrow responded when asked as to who was the source. The man who told me this is one of America's foremost military heroes. Now, I want you to recognize that this is not coming from Alex Jones or from Jesse Ventura or someone else who you would ordinarily be able to throw out there, well, he's wearing a tinfoil hat. Garrow is a well-respected activist and has spent most of his life rescuing infant children from China. In fact, he has spent over $25 million in the past 16 years rescuing some estimated 40,000 Chinese baby girls from certain death based on on China's one-child-per-couple policy. So essentially he takes these children and removes them from China, baby girls who would ordinarily be put to death, quite frankly. Now, this comes on the heels of a report which was in the Washington Free Beacon in reference to the head of Central Command, Major General James Mattis, who is being dismissed by Obama and will leave his post in March. Word on the national security street is that General James Mattis is being given the bum's rush out of his job as the commander of Central Command and is being told to vacate his office several months earlier than planned. Now, if you're not familiar, General Mattis is a Marine Corps legend, and he is going to be forced to leave his command earlier by a few months than planned. And essentially, it's because he had pushed back on the Obama administration in the issues of Iran, which essentially he asked hard questions that they didn't like, along the lines of, what do you do with Iran once the nuclear issue is resolved if you go in there in a military fashion? In other words, do we end up with another Iraq, another Afghanistan? And if so, does it remain a foe? What do you do if Iran then develops conventional capabilities that could make it hazardous for U.S. naval ships, to operate in the Persian Gulf? And then what? Inquiry along these lines is clearly not welcomed. The White House apparently believes that Mattis is too hawkish because he asks tough questions. And so the general consensus is at this point that his departure will have serious negative consequences for U.S.-Iranian relations, civil-military relations, Marine Corps morale, and inter-service politics. An author for National Security Correspondent, or from National Security Correspondent Thomas Ricks, basically states the following: I am at a point where I don't trust this national security team. They strike me as politicized, defensive, and narrow. These are people who will not recognize it when they screw up. and will treat as enemies anyone who tells them they are doing that. And that is how things like Vietnam get repeated. Harsh words, I know, but I am worried. Now, I want to couple these stories along the lines of where our nation is headed with another news story that came out in the Washington Times yesterday in reference to a West Point think tank group that is citing the dangers of the far right, quote unquote, in the U.S. The West Point think tank has issued a paper warning America about far-right groups such as anti-federalist movements, which supports civil activism, individual freedoms, and self-government. The report was issued this week by the Combating Terrorism Center at the U.S. Military Academy in West Point. It's titled Challengers from the Sidelines, Understanding America's Violent Far Right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you have to recognize that the U.S. Military Academy at West Point is where all military leaders are educated. And this kind of diatribe coming out of our government is clearly drawing a line that declares us, the U.S. citizenry, as the enemy. That should give pause to every American out there, regardless of your political ideology. The West Point Center typically focuses on reports for such groups as Al-Qaeda and other Islamic extremist groups as they gain power over in Asia or the Middle East or down in Africa, as we've seen a resurgence there. But this new study turns inward and paints a broad brush of American citizens as dangerous domestic terrorists. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a frightening turn of events in our nation. The report reads, while liberal worldviews are future or progressive-oriented, conservative perspectives are much more past-oriented and, in general, are interested in preserving the status quo. The far right represents a more extreme version of conservatism, as its political vision is usually justified by the aspiration to restore or preserve values and practices that are part of the idealized historical heritage of the nation or ethnic community. While far-right groups' ideology is designed to exclude minorities and foreigners, the liberal democratic system is designed to emphasize civil rights, minority rights, and the balance of power. It then goes on to list a litany of some 350 attacks initiated by far-right groups and individuals in 2011. A Republican congressional staffer who served in the military reported back to the Washington Times, if the Defense Department is looking for places to cut spending, they could start right here. This junk study is ground zero. The question, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly how far is our administration willing to go? I dare say to you that I have been declaring for quite some time now that you can expect that the United States of America is going to declare certain groups, certain political ideologies, and certain actions by American citizens as domestic terrorism. I've been saying this to you for quite some time, and yet I know that there's a significant number of individuals out there who don't believe that this would be the case. I challenge you to go out there and do your own due diligence and your own homework and be assured of your position before you make a decision. You need enough information to make an informed decision, and I suggest to you that you do not have that. That's the end of my bullet points for this morning. If you'd like to comment, you're more than welcome to give us a call here on our Wits End Classic Hair Hotline. Our telephone numbers are 257-1111 and 866-554-6636. That's 257-1111 and 866-554-6636. Wits End Classic Barbershop is a barbershop on a square in West Plains. Do an outstanding job. $10 haircuts. They do an old-fashioned straight razor with hot lather shave that your husband or your boyfriend or the man in your life would absolutely really enjoy having. Great gift. Go over there and talk with them. They also have a zero-gravity chair that's great for blood circulation and that kind of thing. So make sure that you get over to the Wits End Classic Barbershop on the Square in West Plains. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Mike, Damian Isaacs. How you doing?
Damian Isaacs, how are you?
Oh, wow.
Was that a scary statement or what?
I guess we raised enough cane at each capital in the United States this last Saturday that, I'll tell you what, we had a guy from the Oath Keepers up there talking, saying, we will not disarm American citizens. We are going to obey our oath.
Yeah.
And then this joker comes out, and I didn't hear the very beginning. My brother actually called and told me, he said, you better turn on the radio. He said, I was getting the kids around for school. So what is, basically, he's got a litmus test that's basically saying
that he's canning anybody who will not fire on Americans. I'm going to ask you to hold because we've got a break coming up, and we've got to take it because this is capitalism in action. I want to remind you folks that you can catch us live on the web by simply visiting americasvoicenow.org, and on the right-hand side of the screen, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a button here that says, click here to watch live. It's as big as life, so if you miss it, you must be Helen Keller. I would also encourage you to get onto our Facebook page and click the like button. We post great stuff up there every day.
I know what you're thinking, Bunk. You're thinking, did he fire 6 shots or only 5?
Dirty Harry gets all his ammo from the battery station. John Rambo, you guessed it. He gets his ammo from the battery station, too. So if you need ammo, go to the place where the guys who know about ammunition go, the battery station. They have one of the largest supplies of ammunition in the area. So make sure you're stocked up and don't get low on shells. Go to the battery station at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains.
There's one man on this earth who really, truly gets it.
The Tea Party is the most important, most successful, and most powerful political movement in the nation. Despite the best efforts of the left and the media, despite the best effort, by the way, of some radio consultants to try and dismiss this movement, the fact of the matter is, it's the most significant and powerful political force in this nation today. And thank God for that.
Mark Levin is on the radio.
Mark Levin, weekdays 5 until 8 on 107.1 The Points.
Back. Make sure, by the way, folks, that you visit our friends over at Stone Construction at 293-0116. That's Bill Stone from Stone Construction. You can get a hold of him again at 293-0116. Bill's been in the construction business, both residential, commercial, as well as farm and ranch, home, school, commercial, worked on Faith Assembly South Addition, 11 Point Equine Center, builds pole barns, shops, decks, concrete work, structural flat work, decorative repair of old masonry, welded steel pipe corrals, even offers a construction management service where you'll be the general contractor and save a ton of money. Encourage you to get a hold of him at 293-0116. Damian, are you back with us?
I'm back.
So, essentially, what this report is indicating is that there is a move afoot to empty the military of the senior-most individuals who are refusing to fire on American citizens. And this Dr. James Garrow, who is he's the author of a book called The Pink Pagoda, One Man's Quest to End Genocide in China. And again, he spent about some $25 million in the past 16 years rescuing about 40,000 baby girls from the one-child policy in China, because baby girls are the ones who are always murdered. Essentially, he came out yesterday and posted up on his Facebook page that he's been informed by a former senior military leader that Obama is using a new litmus test in determining who will stay and who must go in his military leader's administration. Get ready to explode, folks. The new litmus test of leadership in the military is that they will fire on citizens or not, U.S. citizens or not. Those who will not are being removed. He will not say who the source is, other than to say, the man who told me this is one of America's foremost military heroes.
And why should this surprise us? I mean, all the rhetoric coming out of Washington. It shouldn't,
but what it should be is it should be ringing alarm bells all over our nation.
Absolutely. This people, man, I don't know what has been said already. Like I said, I'm just now tuning in. This ought to wake everybody up. I don't care what everybody's political affiliation is. You don't need to be Republican or Democrat to know.
It's funny that you say that, because I said the same exact thing. I said, you know what? It doesn't matter which political ideology you believe in. If you heard these words, this should literally have you running for the bathroom, because something's about to come out.
Wow, absolutely. You could not be more. That's funny. You couldn't be more fun. For people to think that this is a left-wing, right-wing thing. This is a life thing.
Exactly.
This is your brother, your sister, your buddy over there that believes in the Second Amendment thing. This is about the Founding Fathers who knew. I mean, Madison, Jefferson, they all said any government that does not trust their citizenry with arms isn't worthy of trust themselves, is what Madison said. Any of these people who are out there listening, on the sound of your voice, that think that this is all going to go away. People, you need to wake up. They did the same thing, probably as a test during Katrina. We had active duty Marines and soldiers confiscating weapons down there.
Well, and then on top of that, we have Charlie Rangel from New York who comes out and says, some southern areas have cultures that we have to overcome.
Overthrow?
I kid you not.
There's some of those southern areas that have cultures that we just have to overcome. Here in New York, we passed the most effective gun laws in the country. Yes, of course, we have the highest murder rate, but that's because I live in Harlem.
Right, yeah.
What a piece of human trash.
Yeah, I always tell people, if gun laws, really work, man, they ought to make drugs illegal.
Well, you can look and see where nations after nation after nation who have passed gun control have absolutely failed. Absolutely. By the way, Piers Morgan aside, the nation of England, or the UK, if you want to refer to them that way, has the highest rates for both murder and, in addition to that, violent crime associated with one-on-one assault, rape, robbery, burglary, and house break-ins than any other nation. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't let their liberal press lie to you. You are being buffaloed, buffooned, and misrepresented. And I have to tell you, those of you who are not awake and aware are going to... I have a question for the liberal mindset out there. I'm going to challenge you, if you listen to me and you listen to this show, which I highly doubt, but because unless you listen to me just to love to hate, I don't know, and that's possible. There are people who listen to Alan Combs just because they love to grit their teeth. But and I'm sure there's a few liberals out there, like our caller yesterday, perhaps, who really just hate my guts, but listen anyway because they love to be, incited to anger. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to ask you to ask yourself a question, and that is this. When our nation begins to utilize the power that you have given to this president and this Congress to subjugate our nation and to utilize the power that you have given them to literally enslave us, and I mean literally, I don't mean figuratively, I want to know what you're going to say to yourself and your family and your friends at that point. In other words, I'd like to hear, are you going to be willing to stand up at that point and admit that you were wrong? Because H.L. Mencken was the one who said to us a long, long time ago that faced with empirical proof that you are wrong, most people will go about trying to find justification facts to back up the assertions that they made rather than just admit, I was wrong.
Right.
And human nature says that we hate to admit we're wrong, even when the proof is so overwhelming and so insurmountable that you can't even deny or argue with it. And yet we will stand there and build rationalization after rationalization to essentially argue the fact that we're not wrong, even though mountains of evidence will prove otherwise. So liberals out there, I challenge you, I ask you to ask yourself, what are you going to do when the empirical proof lands in your lap?
It's time to break down these walls. I want to go after this, Mike. I want to read you. I just posted a new page for the social atmosphere out there. Here's my new post. I do not need a document to tell me I have the right to own something which will protect me and my family. I have something which supersedes any document, and it's inferred power. I have rights given me by my Creator. These rights, along with laws, are written upon my heart. I do not want to fight. However, if anyone attempts to restrict my ability to protect my family, I will not hesitate to arrange a meeting between them and their Creator. Mike, these are powers given us, and every man, woman, child, no matter what color you are, no matter what nationality they are, everybody knows that they have the right to protect their family. They have the right to do these things because it's in their heart. It's not in a document, although we do happen to have a document. I just want people to wake up out there. Obviously, I was in the military, and I will not fire upon Mexicans. I would never do that. I would never take away my fellow man's right to protect themselves and their own. It's time to wake up, people. It's getting dangerous now.
Folks, we are about to... Hey, thank you very much, Damien. I appreciate the call, and thanks.
Have a good day.
You know, folks, we are at the crossroads here where we are going to have to make some strong decisions about where we stand and what we intend to do, because we are no longer in a position where we can continue to remain asleep and waiting for someone else to deliver to us a solution. The solution is long past. I mean, we don't really have an opportunity any longer to continue and hide our heads in the sand. The simple reality is that without our active involvement, we are going to see a complete breakdown in what we perceive to be the rule of law in the United States of America. In fact, if you listened to the speeches yesterday of Obama as he was reinaugurated into the seat, you'll notice that there are a number of different areas in which he very, very clearly denotes where his attention and focus will be. And it's interesting that a president would open up his inauguration with comments about disarming America. That's why I said to you yesterday that it is more critical than ever that you get a hold of your House and Senate representatives here in Missouri to pass that HB 170. This is House Bill 170. It's called the Second Amendment Preservation Act. And it was submitted by Representative Guernsey, Casey Guernsey. And I'm going to give you the phone numbers of your state legislators because I think it's terribly important that you get a hold of them and that you make them aware of the fact that you support this and you are demanding that they support this. Now, your first rep is your House Senator or your state senator, and that's Mike Cunningham. He's in the 33rd District. His telephone number is 573-751-1882. You can reach him via email at mike.cunningham, that's CUNNINGHAM, at senate.mo.gov. Your next rep is Robert Ross, the 142nd state, the 142nd rep, 573-751-1490. He can be found at robert.ross, R-O-S-S, at house.mo.gov. Your third is Sean Rhodes, the 154th state rep, 573-751-1455. Sean.Rhodes, R-H-O-A-D-S, at house.mo.gov. This is the activated part, folks. Get out there and make sure you're making your House rep and your state Senate rep aware that they must support HB 170. That Missouri Second Amendment Preservation Act is both a combination of... We'll do a combination of things, and we'll talk about that when we come back. We're going to take a hard break. We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to America's Voice Now.
Fox News Radio. I'm Chris Foster. There's a prayer service this morning and a campaign staff ball tonight as President Obama gets back to work on his second term.
The White House says the inaugural address laid out the broad vision of the president's second-term agenda, and next month's State of the Union address will give the details. Debt and deficits likely to occupy much of the president's time. The president expected to call for comprehensive immigration reform, new early childhood initiatives, and make the case again for gun control legislation.
Fox News Radio's Mike Makowitz. It was 40 years ago today, the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision legalizing abortion.
Dan McConkey is with Americans United for Life.
I absolutely think that one day Roe will be overturned.
Their most recent annual list ranking the states finds the best, from their perspective, to be Louisiana, then Oklahoma. Arizona is most improved.
Fox News Radio's Jessica Rosenthal. Fox News. We report, you decide.
If all those taxes go up, all of them go up, because no deal is made, that's a recession that Obama can't take. He would become Herbert Hoover Obama, and his whole second term and his historical legacy would be destroyed right here in the first weeks of his re-election. He can't take that.
That's Larry Kudlow, Saturdays 3 until 6 on 107.1 The Point.
Weather sponsorships are now available on News Talk 107.1 The Point. Get more information, email info@diamondmediaradio.com for complete details.
From the Point Weather Center for this morning, with a mostly cloudy sky, rather cloudy through the day with a flurry in spots, the high 30, partly cloudy tonight, low 22. Mostly sunny and not as cold tomorrow, high 48. Mostly cloudy skies on Thursday with spotty drizzle, high 40. I'm staff meteorologist Jim Rinaldi, and for more information, visit my1071thepoint.com.
Missouri House Bill 170. If you are not aware of this bill, you need to be. This is a bill which is currently in front of the Missouri Congress, and it has a couple of provisions in there which are absolutely necessary. Now, I know you'll question whether or not we have the right to override certain aspects of the Constitution, and I don't think we are. I think what this bill says here is that, and it's very clear what it states, that the actual bill itself states that any official, agent, or employee of the federal government who enforces or attempts to enforce any act, order, law, statute, rule, or regulation of the federal government upon a personal firearm, a firearm accessory, or ammunition that is owned or manufactured commercially or privately in the state of Missouri and that remains exclusively within the borders of the state of Missouri shall be guilty of a Class D felony. Let me tell you what House Bill 170 does, folks. It actually has two aspects to it. The first is that it allows us to nullify any federal action that comes down from the Obama administration towards any further or new gun control. Now, the idea there is that as gun control is enacted on a federal level, the state of Missouri would have the right and the wherewithal to basically say, we are not observing that particular law, and in addition to that, it's illegal for an individual in the state, an employee of the state, i.e. any kind of office that would be a state-held employee, would be illegal for them to assist in activating or taking part in any kind of a federal ban. It would also enable our state to charge any federal officer or employee with a crime if they were to try to assist in enforcing a federal ban. In addition to that, it has one other aspect of it that I really want you to think about, because this is there's actually two tenets of Restore Missouri that are buried in this bill. The second one is the Firearms Freedom Act. And now they've done it in such a way as they've incorporated it into this bill. And so what it states is that if a gun is made in Missouri, stamped made in Missouri, and stays within Missouri's borders, the federal government has no purview over that whatsoever. It's not subject to regulation. It's not subject to any kind of ATF monitoring. It's not subject to any kind of 4473 to be bought or sold. It can be transferred or sold within the district in the jurisdiction of the state of Missouri. And it is essentially the Firearms Freedom Act and a Federal Nullification Act rolled into one. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not optional. We absolutely must pass HB 170. I'm calling on each and every one of you to write and or call and or both. Get a hold of your senator and your state representatives and make it abundantly clear that House Bill 170 must pass. For the record, it already has 61 co-sponsors, and that is actually outstanding. Now, it's been referred, and a hearing has not currently been scheduled on it, but here's the point. We cannot allow this to sit fallow in Congress, in the state Congress. This must be passed because it will give us as a state an opportunity to declare our sovereignty and separation from the federal government related to gun control issues. You guys in Washington can pass whatever you want. We, however, here in Missouri have our own rules about guns, and we're going to monitor and adhere to them right here. It will also encourage another aspect of this, which is for a firearm manufacturer to come here into Missouri and open a plant. And what will that do? Well, that will bring us some jobs, wouldn't it? So the ripple effect of this bill will be actually an advantage to the state of Missouri. We will have the opportunity to invite federal firearms manufacturers into the state of Missouri and say, look, if you want to make guns for other states, including Utah or Massachusetts or all the way to Maine or Florida, that's fine. But you have to make a line of guns here that's stamped made in Missouri. And that effectively obviates any federal regulation or oversight on those weapons at all. Ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what we need to see in the state of Missouri. That is exactly what we want to see employed. That is exactly the kind of legislation that says, federal government, you have no jurisdiction in terms of overriding our Second Amendment constitutional rights, both state and federal. We're willing to take your phone calls. You can call us on the Wits End Classic Hair Hotline at 257-1111 or 866-554-6636. We have two great friends I want to make sure that you folks get an opportunity to work with. One is Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance. They can be found on the web at Ozark MTN Self-Reliance. They're a half mile east of Walmart on 3225 Highway 62 in Mountain Home. You can also call them at 870-492-4030. That's 870-492-4030. You can also find the battery station at 303 Washington Avenue, right off the square in West Plains. Their telephone number is 417-257-7799. You can find them on the web at batterystation.com. Their phone number again, 417-257-7799. Both of these organizations have self-reliance products in there, including freeze-dried food and long-term storage products. They also have camping gear and all kinds of things that are the basic necessities that every American and every family should have in place. Some food storage for shortages, all kinds of natural disaster, man-made or other, government-made or otherwise. I encourage you to support those folks because they support this show, which therefore supports you. Also, don't want to let it go by the wayside. I want you to visit Mary over at Chantilly's Artisan Bakery. She's at number 2 Evans Arcade, right off the square here, and that is at 417-255-2253. She is the best damn bakery in 100 miles. So make sure that you get out there and see her. You will be absolutely stunned by the quality of the goods that she offers. Best bakery around. Chantilly's Artisan Bakery, 255-2253. So The real issue, folks, is where are we going to stand on this? Are we going to allow our rights to be slowly eviscerated while this administration sorts out its military leaders by determining who is and who is not willing to fire on American citizens? You know, I told you once before that years and years and years ago, one of the qualifying questions for special forces and spec ops was, would you fire on Americans? But I have to tell you, that question is now asked of all military soldiers. So if you don't see the mission creep here, if you don't see the pot boiling up, then you're missing the reality of the situation. And I think you're short-sighting yourself and your family and those who rely upon you. We don't have a whole lot of time, folks. We are coming to the tip of the iceberg here, and it's at one point in the near future where you're going to have to either stand on the left side of the fence or stand on the right side of the fence and draw your line in the sand. It's not something which we really have control over at this point, because the administration is driving this activity. They're forcing this activity upon us. We don't really have a choice. I mean, most Americans would be more than willing to sit back and do nothing. We've exhibited that for the last 50 years. We've sat here and allowed our leaders, so-called, our alleged leaders, to sit here and make our decisions for us. How's that worked out for you? We have higher than ever taxes. We have massive unemployment on a scale of 23% of America is unemployed. If we are still 8.5 million jobs low. Now, I got to tell you something. Just want you to hear this math for a minute. It would take us 26 months at current rates of reemployment to get all of those people reemployed. The only problem with that theory is that while we've been trying to accomplish that, 8.5 million new people have entered the workforce, and they don't have jobs either. So, if you want to look at it from that perspective, at current rates of employment, it will take us 26 months, another 2 years, 2.5 years, or 2 years, to get at least the 8 million people who are unemployed reemployed. However, we're going to still have another 8 million people at that point, the same boat we're in right now, who will be unemployed because they've entered the workforce during that period in time. Folks, this is a never-ending problem. This administration has no interest in jobs. This administration has one interest and one interest alone, and that is to grind America down. That is to grind America down. And they are working at it very actively. Now that this man has been re-administered or reappointed back into the office, and he's done his inauguration speeches and so forth, you watch and see if the mask does not come off, and you see what the true face of evil begins to look like. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Hey, yes, I was just going to mention, I saw a thing last night, I think on YouTube, called Innocence Betrayed. It's about gun control in different countries and stuff like that.
Yes.
And one of the remarkable things also that's mentioned in there is purging of the military. They got rid, he got rid of all the bad guys that he didn't like that was in the military that wasn't going to obey his orders.
Right.
He got rid, Pol Pot got rid, cleansed his nation and things like that. And it's just amazing how we're just allowing this little purge in the military to happen just because of a litmus test or anything like that. And
there's always a purge in military like that when you have a dictatorship type scenario where they step in and they take anybody in their current military, because that's what they're going to rely on to enforce their policies, right? And they purge that of anybody who isn't ideologically aligned with them and or politically or policy aligned with them. And that's exactly what we're seeing. This, by the way, is not the first time this has happened. Just in the last few months, by the way, they yanked an admiral off of out of the Middle East, and they yanked a general out of AFRICOM. And both of these guys were pulled out on very, very vague and shadowy circumstances. And you know what the problem is? These guys are sworn not to talk, and so they can't even come out and say, "I got fired over this." Frankly, I'm calling on you generals and you military officers who have been fired for these types of reasons to break your silence, and I'll tell you why. You've taken an oath to defend the Constitution and defend the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I have to tell you, that oath outweighs any promise you've made to keep silent. if you were dumped out of our military because of your policy or your unwillingness to support a policy by this administration that is deleterious to the American citizen, then I think your obligation and your oath to the Constitution outweighs any oath you made to the service. And I think you need to step up and do the right thing.
Well, and couple that information with the data that just came out of West Point, the report that came out saying that the Patriots, and the Tea Party thing is all extremists and stuff like that. Exactly. They're training their lower ranker soldiers now, and the middle management basically is being trained right now to.
Exactly. When these guys graduate West Point, they come out as lieutenants, right? And they are immediately placed into a position of authority. And as they move forward, these are the guys they're grooming to be tomorrow's military leaders, tomorrow's majors, tomorrow's generals, these are the guys that are being trained by our military. And for them to come out with a statement like that is very, very indicative of the kind of training they're receiving. Because you're not going to have them publish a story like that without there being an absolute declaration of that same similar policy in the school itself, right? In other words, they're practicing what they are preaching to their students. So, that says it all, folks. I don't know what we're waiting for here. I don't know what more proof you need. Hey, listen, I want to thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
Thanks for your support for our show, too. I appreciate you, bud.
Thank you. You're great.
So, ladies and gentlemen, here we have a scenario that is completely out of control, and all the proof lays around you. All you've got to do is turn around and look. I want you to visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/America's Voice Now. Yesterday, we went from like 115 likes to like 150, literally overnight. And I want you to be a part of that because we need your support and your help, and that helps us to drive a lot of activity on the web. Join us at americasvoicenow.org. We'll be right back.
Hi there, Eddie.
I have an Android phone, and I was picking up Wi-Fi from my neighbor. I wasn't stealing it. It'll connect and it'll link up for about a minute or two, and then it keeps cutting me off. Now, is there any way I can fix that?
You can sign up for cable, sign up for a monthly plan, and $40 a month, and then you get a great connection right inside your own house, and you get to be an adult like the rest of us and pay your bills.
You can catch Kim Commando Saturdays from noon until 3 right here on the Ozarks Best News Talk 107.1 The Point.
Here we go with round 2 of Hope and Change. Looking forward looks bumpy and rocky. Nobody's stimulated by high unemployment and tax increases. Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance can help you be ready to face the challenges of the next 4 years. We have long-term food storage, ammunition, informational books and DVDs, water purifiers, and a whole lot more. Come see us at 3225 Highway 62 East, Suite number 3, just a half mile past Walmart in Mountain Home, or call us at 492-4030. That's Ozark Mountain Self-Reliance.
Obama's inaugural address yesterday contained a couple of very disturbing statements. When times change, so must we. Here's a statement. And I want you to listen to this and then put it into the perspective of firearms, especially relating to the Second Amendment. We have always understood that when times change, so must we. That fidelity to our founding principles requires new responses to new challenges. That preserving our individual freedoms ultimately requires collective action. For the American people can no more meet the demands of today's world by acting alone than American soldiers could have met the forces of fascism or communism with muskets and militias. He added an explicit reference to Newtown. Our journey is not complete until all our children from the streets of Detroit to the hills of Appalachia to the quiet lanes of Newtown know that they are cared for and cherished and always safe from harm. People said when he was running for office and said we are 3 days short of fundamental change, that he couldn't possibly have meant the kind of fundamental change that we've seen. And yet, now we know exactly what he means by fundamental change. The destruction of America as we know it. That statement that you just heard ought to send all the smoke signals up into the air that you need. Their intention is to obsolete the Second Amendment. Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, Mike, Code Brown alert still will continue after hearing this info today.
I hear you. Arcanistan Joe, thanks for calling in, buddy.
Yeah, everybody needs to pay attention to the Posse Comitatus Act, which was the rule of law barring military from, acting upon the citizens. And the standards were also there for the firepower of law enforcement, or I call them peace officers, and caller Chuck, he needs to understand nobody out here is calling for fully auto. It causes a lot of collateral damage.
He does understand that. He's just throwing that out there in an attempt to put a smoke screen up.
Well, I'm just trying to give him a benefit of the doubt. I base my opinions on facts, and I suggest he do the same thing. But anyway, nobody wants to waste ammo. Nobody wants collateral damage. The standards we've got set up, and these military guys now, I appreciate Damien out there, but they need to recognize it's a rule of law, Posse Comitatus Act. And that's going to be...
Waived? Waived?
Do what?
That's going to be waived?
Well, somebody said that it was repealed or done away with somehow. I don't have anything on that. Do you?
I don't, and you can't. I don't know that. I know that he has made executive orders that would allow him to declare martial law during a time of peace, and that is essentially the same thing.
Well, sure. Anyway, I consider the LEOs, law enforcement officers, peace officers, whatever, I consider them allies, in this fight against world domination. And it's just going to have to be their choice.
Yeah.
So, hey, I'll see you later.
Thanks, buddy. Ladies and gentlemen, we've seen over and over and over that this administration says essentially what they're going to do. But everyone sits around and says, that's not what he means. Well, I beg to differ. That's exactly what he means. And those who are unwilling to read between the lines have not learned in the course of history how the progressive movement operates. I talked to you yesterday about the fact that it is important for you to listen to what liberal representatives have to say, because they will show their true colors every single time that you hear them talk. They will say on an interview or whatever the case may be, they will try to answer a logical request or a well-reasoned argument with a group of assertions that either are unprovable or untrue, blatantly untrue. And when caught at it, they will immediately descend into either casting aspersions, or they will start to blow out a lot of smoke, or they'll start to throw out an emotional argument that can't possibly be defended, or they will simply just descend into name calling and that kind of thing. Now, I heard the president yesterday say during his inaugural speech that we need to stop the name calling. Well, I invite him to seek that same or to put forth that same advice to his own party, because that is the group that, quite frankly, is the one who is guilty of exactly that type of situation. I mean, I don't see anybody calling liberals names other than, forthcoming tyrants. Now, pointing out the fact that we are about to step over the boundary into totalitarianism is not name calling. That's called warning. I mean, if a guy's walking down the street with a knife and he starts approaching you and your group, are you not obligated to say to your group, hey, there's a thug coming down the street? That's not casting an aspersion to call him a thug. He's got a knife in his hand. What do you expect he's going to do with that? That's alerting and warning the people around you. And we all have an obligation to do that. It's the press's obligation to do that. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the mainstream media has completely abdicated their responsibility to us. And that's the reality, folks. Listen, this show, I'm gonna throw something out there because it needs to be said. This show is a listener-supported program. You've all heard me say many times that I do this on a voluntary basis, and I do. This station doesn't support or pay a salary to have this show on here or anything else. They don't pay for the web work that's done. They don't pay for the fact that we keep the site up and have a YouTube page and all those types of things. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your responsibility to assist with. And so I'm going to throw something out there that may rankle some of you, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm not a Southern preacher who's calling for alms before passing miracles, but I am going to tell you that our expenses far greatly exceed anything that we ever have brought into from donations. And there are ways that you can assist us. You can assist us financially, and I don't care if it's $1 or if it's $5. I'm not asking for the widow's mite, but I am suggesting that there is a lot of folks out there who could afford to drop $10 into the kitty and help us to at least cover some of our expenses. Personally, I pay all of them myself out of my pocket, and I'm not independently wealthy. I can assure you of that. So I would encourage you and ask you to simply log on to our website, and there's a couple of buttons around in different spots, but all of them say the same thing: donate here. And you can do it through PayPal if you've got some funds in your PayPal account, and you can do it through a credit card if you've got a credit card. If you can't, and you can't do it any other way, then I would simply ask you to put together an envelope and throw a check in there and mail it to us here at America's Voice Now, 10 Court Square, in West Plains, Missouri, 65775. If you're in the area, you can simply drop it in an envelope, write America's Voice on there, seal it, and drop it off at the front desk of the radio station. They'll be happy to pass it on. We really could use some help, folks. I mean, the initiatives that we've driven out here with our Restore Missouri project and all of the work that we do, all of the work that is done behind the scenes that you're not even aware of. I mean, there are 4 or 5 volunteers who work tirelessly to try to make this show effective and useful to you. And I have to tell you, they're volunteers. None of them have ever been paid a single penny for the work that they do. You don't even know who they are. And I'll never tell you who they are because you don't need to know. What you do need to know is that these people work tirelessly on your behalf to make sure that this show is out there educating, informing, motivating, and activating people. You know, we have an incredible following. We have a ton of people who visit our website every day. We have people that go onto our Facebook page every day. We have people that watch our YouTube videos every day. We have people all over the nation, I might add, who come in and capture our show streaming off of our website. They come in from all over the place. I can watch it live when I'm not, talking at any rate. But I can see folks coming in there, and they're visiting from places like Michigan, and they're visiting from places like Florida and Texas and California and Ohio and Indiana and Illinois, New Jersey, New York. These people come in, and they watch the show live, streaming on the video system. Now, all of this stuff, folks, doesn't just come free. And, they are actually, I mean, I've gotten a few, small $10 and $12 and $15 donations from places that aren't even within our listening area. I'm asking you for your support. And I'm asking you for your support because we really are in need of it. Part of our project of Restore Missouri has costs associated with it you're not even aware of. I spend an enormous amount of time driving around and going to different shows and things like that and speaking engagements. We could really use your help. I'd greatly appreciate it, and I'd be extraordinarily grateful to you, as would the rest of the team at AVN, if you would help us out. Okay? Listen, we're going to be, Mark Walters, is going to be our guest tomorrow. And on Friday, we're going to have Doreen Hannes back to talk with us again about topics surrounding Agenda 21 and the food topics. So please make sure that you join us there as well. Mark Walters tomorrow, the host for Armed American Radio, will be joining us, and I think it'll be an interesting conversation for you. Please find us on americasvoicenow.org and facebook.com/America's Voice Now. You can also find us on YouTube at youtube.com/America's Voice Now. Make it really easy, guys. You can catch every show that we do on video up on YouTube as well. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow morning.
Let's get to the point.
Well, let me get to the point.
FM News Talk with the Ozarks is FM 107.1 The Point. KBMV. Birch
Fox News Radio. I'm Dave Anthony. He's been sworn in twice.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
He's partied.
Obama's on fire.
And now the president will pray. Finishing up his inauguration events, Fox News Radio's Mike Makowitz live at the White House.
In a half an hour, there's an interfaith inaugural prayer service at the Episcopal National Cathedral in Washington, a tradition that goes back to the time of George Washington. Meantime, the president will be looking ahead to the difficult issues in his second term, starting with budget issues. House Republicans expected to grant a short-term increase on the debt ceiling tomorrow, but contingent on the Senate Democrats passing their first budget in 4 years, forcing them and the president to engage in the debate over government spending. Dave?
Mike, the U.S. is getting more involved in Mali, helping the French fight terrorists. Fox News Radio's Simon Owen, monitoring live in London.
Dave, American planes have begun transporting French soldiers and equipment to Mali's capital, Bamako. It's part of a logistical support package the U.S. offered Paris. Officials say they expect this operation to last several days. America is also providing intelligence support. It's not clear whether that includes surveillance drones. France sent troops into Mali in a bid to help the African country stop an advance of rebel fighters linked to Al-Qaeda. Dave?
Simon, it is take your breath away cold in the northern U.S. 12 below zero right now in Eagan, Minnesota, keeping AAA busy.
Dead batteries, flat tires, blocks getting frozen.
There are below zero wind chill warnings that stretch to Maine. Now, it's not as cold, but still brutal for some Superstorm Sandy victims. Still without heater hot water like this New York City woman.
We have a small little heater upstairs for my kids' room. This is how I've been doing for a couple of months now, since the hurricane.
The Supreme Court is refusing to hear a company's appeal challenging the EPA's authority to set air quality standards. And it's Roe v. Wade turns 40 today.